Mafia, you know that as much as I do, in fact probably more, is court cases are actually almost always leverage. Even in the cases which are not women specific, half the time cases are filed in court to put pressure to listen to the jirga, right? So most of the cases are settled out of court in any case. But the pressure is, okay, now that aapne parcha kaata hai, to ab aapko meri baat sunna padegi. So it kind of works in that. But in terms of how do you intermediate, I think local governments we've seen have in the past been, I mean, I don't know, I think the provincial governments have kind of really warped the local government system now. अब मैं नहीं कह सकती हूँ कि कौन से सूबे के अंदर बहुत वाइब्रेंट लोकल गवर्नमेंट्स हैं, मगर जो 2006 का बल्दियाती निज़ाम था, उसके बाद तो हमें ये क्लियरली नज़र आ रहा था ना, that we saw that for instance women who had no authority or mandate to be taking on domestic violence, the union councillor women, they would call the guy who had been beating a woman and telling him, squat, murga ban jao, or logo ke samne they would tell him, now you swear in front of everybody you will never hit her again, which was completely beyond their mandate. That's not what they were supposed to be doing. But the state gave them some recognition, some space in which to do it because they were counsellors. So they took on the case of domestic violence. So I think you see spaces emerge in unexpected ways. So that's definitely one intermediary, but I'm sure there are many other ways of understanding what Farida also referred to, is what are the layers or what are the levels of engagement. So it's not necessarily always direct between the citizen and the state. So what is mediating it? I think we need a longer conversation. I actually don't even, I don't know what else can come to mind. A lot can. I think it could be on many tiers, and yes, you're probably right, it is simplistic to see it necessarily as a linear step up or step down. So I think there so much more would come into play. Institutionally, probably the local governments, but half our problem is that mediation doesn't happen institutionally. If it did, we'd have a lesser problem on our hands. So it's I mean, a caste system would come into it again. If you look at it at one level, we say we don't even have the caste system in Pakistan, but then we know it is a system that you can't actually get beyond in most places in Pakistan. So that would come into it, class would come into it. So I think every intersection of power would place a filter between your relationship with the state. So Fatima, the issue of sexuality, to be honest, I don't know. I didn't look at it. I didn't look at it. So you were asking me, was I able to explore that? No. Did I want to particularly ignore that? No. But did it come up organically? Because I was particularly looking at the reforms process, so in linkage with that, it didn't come up. I think part of what I was trying to say is, like you said, who are these women who are meeting at the peripheries? I'm actually contesting the notion of the periphery, especially geographically. So I don't know how much value it adds to my understanding to look at these locations as peripheries. Because, that's what Farida also alluded to, that it comes with its particular baggage. I mean, we can read what we want into center periphery. I can say there are 45 centers and 45 peripheries, and they're more of Venn diagrams, or they are rather than lines, or they are But it's a framework that means something in particular, and it has a colonial kind of baggage. What it meant, we know what it meant. So I don't know how that helps me anymore to use that paradigm to understand state-women relations. I think maybe it would have still worked for me like 20 years ago when I could easily say that women are just simply the periphery of the state itself. I'm not sure. And coming to your question, where did I meet these? Who are these women who I'm meeting to, and why were they thinking of the state? I think that's a very good question with regard to Fatima. So I had said right up front that the women I was in this particular case talking about is the duck? Okay, I can't pronounce it. But it is duck. Okay, so it's the women duck. Now these are not again remotely representative of the tribal areas, because these are educated women. They're women who have some link with Peshawar, because this kind of movement emerged out of Peshawar. They're all women who belong to different tribal areas, but have obviously a kind of mobility beyond the 7 agencies of Fata themselves. So they will of course have a very particular perspective on it. Having said that, I think that's true for if we see the change process in FATA, we see that agencies that are more integrated, that have greater mobility, that have greater market links, that have a greater business community that moves back and forth, are those very agencies that are more receptive to the to the reform process. And the agencies where we see less of that, for instance, South Waziristan has very, very limited economic opportunities, or Oman, which has been, traditionally very, very closed off to outside experience. You see the most resistance coming from those areas. But whereas Khyber Agency, which is pretty much Peshawar, you see a much greater receptivity. So, I mean, if you're making that point, I think it's a very valid point to not kind of project the experience of which are the women I was speaking with, across the whole of the tribal areas. And I think the point wasn't really to do that. The point was to say, well, there are these group of women who are trying to assert themselves in a moment of huge change. So, I mean, for me, the FATA reform process is interesting because it's like a microcosm of the entire nation-building project, condensed into 2 years. So we can actually see how 70 years happened in about 2-3 years' time. So in that sense, it's an exciting moment, and these women are claiming their stakes to this moment. So for me, they're exciting in that sense. But do I read them as a representative of women across FATA? I don't. And I think that's it. Farida's question, I don't think Farida was asking me a question. I think Farida was... Yes, sorry, I'll come to that. Actually, I shouldn't come to that. The question you're asking, I think it's important, but I don't think I'm the right person to be answering that question. So I'll deflect that question onto Nivedita and maybe to Farzana, who will be a lot more authoritative in talking about this, and maybe even Farida, if you want to talk about women legislation. So these are their areas I get elbowed if I...
But I think we should hold on to that thought. We'll see if we have time for it, because let's try and have a discussion around the paper, and if necessary we can talk over lunch or something. Because so one more round of questions. I'm just looking if there's anybody apart from the front row. Okay, none. So Neelam, Nigar, Kavar, and who else? Please raise your hand. Okay, can we maybe start from the back and then come forward? Let's have that as the first question. So that's 5 for last. Oh.
I'm not into it. Nazish, मुझे लग रहा है कि हमने जो एक मॉडल बनाया था नवीन यूनिवर्सिटीज़ का, being into it, मुझे लगता है कि कहीं ये intermediating role play कर रहा है of serving the interest of the centers. Universities जैसे लगता था कि change आएगी, मुझे लगता है they are reinforcing the same system of the patriarchy, or these are the extension of the family. I don't think so is serving. और मशरूम की तरह women universities government जो है वो बनाई जा रही हैं. Women universities basically they are easy target to handle. I don't know कि इसके ऊपर reflect इस टाइम पे करने की ज़रूरत है या नहीं है. Do we need the more women universities which are reinforcing the same patriarchal system? No, not.
As Sajid from Gender Studies Force, the issue of gender, if we see it, is a very old issue in the world, and also it is come from when the creation has come, both sexes, since the Adam and also hunting gathering. So in also many wars, woman has been used, and in many issues there are thousand issues they have been only seen in war. Every human being has 2 eyes, 2 ears, but 1 mouth of speaking. So people only listen and watch the issues, whatever is going on. And if we see the great philosophers who have also gave their thoughts, they are basically, they don't show the equality of women. Their thought is changed. Even we see in the recently the CSS, Central Superior Service, the essays which are going on and coming, gender equality is myth. Why these types of essays coming in the CSS? Gender equality is myth. Why? Why don't essays come? Gender equality should be, or gender status and what are the ways in which equality should be in the world, also in Pakistan. But still the same cycle is going on of the great philosophers in the CSs. So what is the solutions of these types of things? This is my question.
There are 4 questions.